Hello there everyone, it's me again. So covers for our 30-day challenge using the gift bag. There's still things that I'm going to cover with you with regards to the journal. I'm going to cover the outside of the journal today and a little bit of the inside, and some of the things that you're going to have to consider, because there's still a bit of a thought process that has to go into this. You can't just sort of career ahead. Then when I've done that, I then want to do another video which will go through putting all the elements back in and some of the things that you can do to finish it off. And then I want to do another video showing you the digital, what I've done with the digital pages that we were doing throughout the 30-day challenge. So be a little bit patient. There's still stuff for you to learn and to do. Okay, now then, as I said, there is a thought process that you've got to go through, rather than just going straight ahead and doing stuff. One is that we've got this stitching on our spine. Now at the moment I've only got one row of stitching because I actually haven't completed my second signature to put into the journal yet, because I'm a tad busy. So I've still got to add my second signature in place. The stitching shows because I've used a light coloured thread, and I've got to consider about whether I want to leave the stitching visible or whether I want to cover it up. Consideration number one. So then I've got to think about what can I actually cover it up with. So on the spine of the original one that I showed, let me just undo that. I'm getting it in a great big knot. Okay, I used Craftex and I embossed the Craftex. I'm going to come to that in a bit. There are other things that you can use to cover over the spine area if you want to. Before you cover the spine though, is on the bottom of the journal cover. Can you see I've got a crease line there, which was from the bag when it was made into a bag. So I actually want to put some lace on that. Now I'm just going to put that to one side, because if I show you on this one, I've got exactly the same crease here. If I want to cover that with lace and I've already covered my spine over, then the lace has got to end about here, because I think it might look a little bit silly if I wrap it round the spine area as well. So I might want to think about, do I want to put the lace on first before I put the spine on? Okay, so thought process number one. Which comes first, chicken or the egg? And at this moment in time, bacon and eggs would be lovely. Might have to consider that after I finish the video. The next thing then that you need to think about is the closure. Now, as we've already said when I showed you the bare bones one, this is a chunky monkey and it's got an alligator mouth. And that's before I've even added journaling cards and other bits and pieces within the journal itself. This is just purely from all the elements that we've made. So it'll either end up being a really chunky monkey, and it might even end up splaying out this wide. So I've got to think about something that will help me to keep this closed. By the same token, I don't want to fill it up to the point where it's going to put that much pressure on the spine that the spine is going to split. So a couple of things that you can do for the closure. One is to use the seam binding closure or ribbon closure like I've done here, but punching an eyelet hole and adding the metal eyelets, or grommets as some people call them, into the front cover. Now if I do that, if I punch the hole through, I need this image or whatever it is that I'm doing on the inside cover first, because otherwise if I punch my hole and then put my picture on the top, I'm going to be covering over that hole. Now the technique that I use is I've got these punching tools and I have to use a hammer and annoy my neighbour something chronic because I put that on my cover, punch it with the hammer, it punches a hole in. I then put my grommets or eyelets on top of that little thing there, put my cover on top of that, put that piece of tool on top of that, bang it with my hammer again, and it puts it in place. And you would need then one on this side and one on this side. That's one possibility. You could just do it so that you've got just one on this side, and then you attach your ribbon on that side only and wrap it around. Okay, so that's another thought, but again, you would need your images or whatever it is that you're doing, your decorative papers on the inside covers on each side. So again, chicken or egg. If you decide to use hitch posts, and Mr. Tim has popularised these, there is a way in which you can make your own version of these, but I also sell these as well on my little pop-up shop on my Facebook group. I'll just get rid of those. And they look like that. So if I turn that on its side, so can you see it forms like a little post, and then the little screw bit then goes onto the back. Now if I'm going to use the hitch post, the post goes on the front here, so I need a hole, and then the screw bit goes on the inside to join the two together. Alright, so we've got, see if I can do this, because this is the only thing with longer nails. Okay, so screw that side, post that side, put them through the hole, screw it together. What I don't want to do is I don't want that screw on top of my lady picture, so I would attach the hitch post first and then cover over the screw head with my image or decorative papers. So you can see the difference now in that if you do the eyelets first, you need your inside cover doing. If you use the likes of a hitch post, then you would need that in place first and then do the decorating on the inside. The way in which you use the hitch post is that it forms the little post here. You attach your ribbons to the front here, you tie them together, you make, let me move that out of the way, you make a bow, and then come on Carol, shape yourself, woman. So that I've got the bow, my ribbon's got in the way, just bear with me. So I've got my bow there. Alright, so I would knot it first. I don't want to knot it because I don't want a knot in my ribbon. And then you would do the bow. And then this part here, the loop that's behind that bow, would then come round to the front and sit over the top of the post. Okay, does that make sense? Hope so. So pretend that bit's not there. So we've got the knot in our ribbon, we've got a bow, and then that comes round and loops over the front. So that's how the hitch posts work. But as I say, you need to attach the hitch post first here and then attach your image. But on the back of this one, if you have the eyelet hole, then you need your image in place first and then the eyelet. You've then also got to think about the decorating of the front, because you might want to cover that area up with a piece of decorative paper. So you might need to put your decorative paper on first before you put your hitch posts on, or before you put your eyelets in. So again, we're going through that scenario of chicken and egg. So you need to work out roughly what it is that you're going to be doing both on the front cover, the inside cover, what your closure is going to be, and what you're going to do to the spine, because each one affects the next part of what it is that you're going to do. So you really need to just stop and think about what it is that you're going to do, so then you can work out the process of what needs to go on first. Okay. I hope all of that made sense. So I'm now going to come to covering over the spine. Now, as I say, on this one I use something called Craftex, and I will show you it. It's a funny thing, is Craftex. It's an intriguing thing, I should say, rather than funny. So this is the package. Okay, so Craftex, and it's a craft paper fabric. Right, so it comes as a long bit like that. Comes in a variety of different colours as well. Essentially, it feels like paper, and it bends and moves like paper. But it's also a fabric. But you know how when I showed you the Tyvek, oh, so this will go in the washing machine. So you know how I showed you with the Tyvek how it doesn't rip? Well, this is similar. It does eventually go, but look, I'm putting a fair bit of pressure on that and it doesn't rip. So that's why you'll see a lot of people using Craftex on the inside. So where we use Tyvek on the inside, some people use the Craftex because it does the same kind of thing as the Tyvek does, and it's prettier looking as well. But the nice thing is because it's paper, you can actually put it into an embossing folder and run it through your machine so that you can emboss it as well. You can sew on it too. So I've just done a bit of basic embossing on this. I am actually going to run some gold ink over the top of the embossing to just highlight it a bit. Now, the other things that you can use, that's Craftex. The other things that you can use to cover over your spine is you could just use a piece of fabric. Let's get my other bit to show you. So I've got some fabric samples of an upholstery type fabric. So I would be inclined to put the upholstery fabric on here because of it being such a heavier weight. It just helps to give that a bit of extra strength and support. You could use leather, whether it be pretend leather or whether it be real leather. So you could put leather on it. You could attach lace. So you could put a wide piece of lace on. So let me just show you. So I could just put just this one piece of lace on and wrap it around the spine so that it then goes onto the back of the cover as well, and that's covering over the stitching. You could just get a large doily or a piece of lace and wrap that around the spine. Now with this one it's a little bit too open weave, and so we'll therefore show the stitching through the actual lace. Okay, but then it means that you don't need to decorate your front because you've already used some kind of doily, which is pretty enough as it is on its billy. Okay, so there's all sorts of different things that you can use. You can use paper or card, but I'm going to show you something with the card. Okay, I have just got a greetings card here, which I'm just going to wrap around that spine just for demonstration purposes. So if you imagine if you've got a piece of paper or card and you don't have to put the crease in, I'm just showing you with the crease because it's easier for you to see what I'm actually going to show you. Because what you've then got to think about is all these things that you could attach to your spine is how you're going to glue them. You could, of course, stitch it in place, which would help a lot. But there are things that it will do that you maybe don't want it to do. Stitching makes it very permanent. Glue can also be very permanent, but stitching is a little bit more permanent than the glue. So if I just wrap this card around here, okay, so I've just wrapped it, I've pushed it up, butt up against the edge of the spine, and I'm going to just paper clip it in place on each side. Now if you imagine that I was decorating the spine with my piece of paper or card, and I've glued it in place. All right, so it's glued there and it's now glued there. I have a problem. I have a problem, Houston, because if I now go, even if that's glued in place, and I'm going to hold it there as well, and let me do that so I can show you. If I've glued it all the way around there, and I'll do that, can you see what the card's doing? It's lifting away from the cover. Even if I glued it all the way up to the top there and opened it up, hopefully you can see that. Can you see it's lifting a little? Because we have forced the card to be in contact with each other. When we then come to open that spine, it opens out, and that's with the covers now fully open. So let me show you this way. So that's my cover, bit of card on it, that's all glued down. I then open up my journal to use it, and that shifts, and it can pull, the glue can pull the card away from the cover. Right, so if I do that, so that is now flat, what it's done is it's done that, and so it will pull the card away from the cover. You could glue it flat, okay, so I could glue it onto the front of my cover so it's flat, could leave it overnight and all the rest of it, come back, put books on it, come back, then go to close that, and because paper is set and it needs, if you're going to stretch it around a shape, you need to break all the fibres down in the card or the paper first. So it means then that when I come to close that, it will probably end up cracking. It'll crack up. It'll go, oh, I'm not having that, mate. I'm not having that. Oh, I've split up and no. So with fabric, it's got the, because of the way in which it's woven, it's got that little bit more stretch on it. It could still end up doing that though. Okay. Hello, hello. I'm a piece of card and I don't want to stick to the cover. God, I do worry about me sometimes. But if you stick fabric to it, it's got a little bit more give. If you stick the lace to it, again, it's got a little bit more give to it. All right. If you're going to do something like card on your spine, what I would actually suggest is place glue here and place glue here. Don't place glue here. Allow it that bit of give. All right, so it'll do that. Okay, so allow it that little bit of give, because again, if you look at old books, let me just get my big old book out. Okay, if I open it up, it's got that gap here because the signatures are not attached to the spine, and it's to allow, it's almost like allowing the book to breathe. Okay, so I would be inclined to place glue here and here, but not down this centre bit down here, so that you are allowing your book to breathe. Now it will kink, it will form a crease, but when it's closed you won't see that so much, but when it's open it'll be that way on and you won't see it anyway. But it will form that little bit of a dink there, all right, on the crease part of your spine. So that's just something to watch out for. Again, whatever material it is that you're thinking of using, card, lace, fabric, have a little practice run before you do it actually on your journal, so that you can see the effect that it will sort of create, and whether it will do that lifting up and off, because there's nothing frustrating than sticking it on, opening it up and then seeing that your glue is just coming apart and you've got all this stringy bit of dry glue inside of there, because then you spend hours, and I know because I've done this, pouring glue down there and then pinching it closed and then finding all this glue oozing out the top. So just something to think about. But the main part about this video is to say to you, think about the process, think about the order in which you've got to do things, think about your closure, think about what you're putting on the spine, think about what's going to go on the cover, think about what's going to go on the inside, and then work out the process of which bit needs to come first. Okay, if you decide that you don't want the likes of a hitch post or the eyelets, couldn't think of the word then, or the eyelets, you could just get seam binding. Now this is an extra long piece, I don't think I need it that long, but never mind. And I folded it in half, and the loopy end, and I've done this on a couple of my other journals as well, so I've put the loopy end here, and then I'm going to put the loose ends through the loop. Now the nice thing about doing it this way is it then doesn't matter how fat your journal gets, so long as you've got enough ribbon. And then I just pulled it up a little bit so that it finishes here on the opening, and then I wrapped it round a couple of times, and then I attached a key on the end of the ribbons here, which I then slotted underneath. So that the key acts as a weight to then hold that in place. So that's another way of doing it. Another way is to use a piece of elastic. So you could wrap elastic around your book to keep it closed. Let me just unravel this. There we go. So you could, let's just pretend this is a piece of elastic. So you could wrap your piece of elastic over your book that way. You could wrap a piece of elastic around your book that way. So there's many different options on how you can go about closing your journal. Right, I think that's enough to addle your brain for now. So I'll let you go and have a little think about that one. And make your decisions. One other thing, sorry, I did want to say. So you know, we've stitched our first signature and our second signature in, and I mentioned about attaching these parts to this little flappy bit. You can do that bit now as well. And then the other thing that you can do is, if you've still got a piece of Tyvek showing here, you could add a length of ribbon and stick that down. You could put some washi tape, add that there. You could add a piece of fabric. You could add, oh, I don't want to do that. You could add a picture like that, a strip, so then it forms a pocket here. So there's quite a few options that you can do with this section to cover over that little bit of Tyvek if it's showing. Okay, that's definitely enough to addle your brain for today. I'll be back with more tomorrow. Bye.